Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Glad you could join us for the DePatie River Salt Creek Work Group meeting. We are recording this and happy to have a presentation from Tony Conn of Naperville in just a few minutes, but we'll start by approving our minutes from August 31 and using the chat box. If anyone has any comments that read the minutes, myself and the other officers do review those and draft. So normally they're accurate, but if anyone sees anything that you'd like to have addressed or have question about, please just put it in the chat. Seeing nothing, if there's a motion to approve the minutes, please raise a hand. And I'm seeing Joe Slevnick making the motion, seconded by Jennifer Hammer. So please enter your vote.
The motion has passed with 4 abstentions.
Great, thank you. Now that's out of the way, let's move on to our presentation. Stephen, would you like to take it from here?
Yeah, so I'd like to introduce Tony Conn with the water distribution. He's water distribution and collection manager with the Department of Public Utilities at the City of Naperville. And he is going to be talking about infiltration and inflow control at the City of Naperville. Groundwater, stormwater, and illicit connections into wastewater collection systems is a major issue for wastewater treatment plant management, and increases loadings the unpredictability of loadings and flow, and can cause extra costs at the and in design and management at those centers. City of Naperville has been a leader in tackling the this what we call I&I issue, and Tony is going to take us through what they've been doing about that over the last 20 years or so. So Tony, if I've aired that out properly, then please take it away.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Actually, I missed quite a bit of it. I got a message saying that my internet connection was unstable, so hopefully everything froze. So hopefully that doesn't happen during this presentation again.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephen, and I want to thank the work group for having me here to discuss Naperville's inflow and infiltration program and our sewer rehabilitation program. Again, my name is Tony Conn. I'm the water distribution and collection manager for the City of Naperville. I manage the stormwater pumping, wastewater collection, water supply, and water distribution groups for the City of Naperville. A little bit about the City of Naperville's collection system. I'm sure you guys know all about our Springbrook Water Reclamation Center, so I'm going to kind of skip that portion of it. Sorry, Joe. With that being said, the City of Naperville's wastewater collection system consists of about 23 wastewater pump stations. We have about 566 miles of sanitary sewer. Naperville is not a combined system. It's strictly a wastewater sanitary system. We have about 14,000 manholes, and with our satellite community, we serve a population of about 163,000 people. Within the City of Naperville's wastewater collection system, we have a very elaborate, large system network of flow monitors. Excuse me. We have 46 wastewater collection open channel flow monitors, and of our 23 wastewater pump stations, we have 13 closed pipe flow monitors at those stations. Also with that, we have a very large network of which we call SSO alarms, which I'm going to discuss all this as the presentation goes on. 13 rain gauges, and going back to our sanitary rehab program. Currently, at the end of 21, we've rehabilitated about 637,000 feet of sanitary sewer mains, rehabilitated about over 4,600 sanitary service laterals, chemically grouted about 507, and we have a very large manhole rehabilitation and manhole replacement program going on. Some of the results that we've had with our INI and sanitary sewer rehabilitation programs, in 21 and 22, we've had 0 wastewater backups, either wet weather and or dry weather. So we're very happy with those results alone. This statement is actually on the City of Naperville's website. It mainly talks about how the City of Naperville, we spend about $5 million a year annually on our capital collection repairs and maintenance and INI reduction. Also kind of discuss our 10-year plan, City of Naperville, which I'll discuss again as we move on, a 10-year INI plan that we adjust annually. The City of Naperville, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox to deal with inflow and infiltration and our where we're going to do our sanitary sewer rehab work. The 4 major components mainly consist of our flow monitoring, our customer service calls, what the field crews see out in the field when they're doing their maintenance, and the data we get from our wastewater pump stations through our SCADA system. These other items listed on the slides are actually all of the investigation tools that we use to help pinpoint where the actual INI and what sewers actually need to be rehabilitated. From sanitary smoke testing, dye flooding, MSI inspections. Which MSI inspections is multi-sense inspections on large sewer lines. Multi-sense meaning it uses CCTV, but it also uses sonar and laser LiDAR technologies to do a full inspection of the sanitary sewer line, including what debris is under the water flow. The laser measures the actual thickness of the pipe compared to what it originally was installed to what it is now. So we have an annual program that we do that on all of our trunk sewers. And the one that we have the best success with, and I can't say enough about this program, is saturated ground inspections, where we actually go out, inspect our sewer mains, our manholes, and our laterals during saturated ground conditions. We found out this works out best for doing any sanitary sewer inspections because you're actually seeing what the sewer system is doing in real time. Crews will go out. We get an alarming from our SCADA system. After 1.5 inches of rainfall, crews will go out, CCTV certain planned areas, do manhole inspections. And again, this is where we find a majority of all of the defects, including infiltration from joints, laterals, some pumps that are not installed properly. So we can't say enough about this tool in our toolbox. This is a slide that actually shows City of Naperville's 10-year INI and rehab program. It's actually broken down into categories of what's being done, broken down by years, the status, completion date, and the area and or subdivisions that we're going to be doing the work. This is actually submitted to the IEPA every year. And in December, we review what is being done in the system, how the system has performed over the year, and we adjust as needed. Like I was saying earlier, the City of Naperville has a large network of flow monitoring consisting of the 46 open channel flow monitors and 13 closed pipe monitors. The City of Naperville also has a contractor that does maintenance and data analysis on the closed pipe flow monitor. Naperville crews maintain and operate all of the closed pipe. The way it's worked, that if you notice on both of these maps, each area is broken down into flow basins, and the flow basins are recorded in linear feet and acreage. This data is given to our flow monitoring data analysis company, and they use all of this data and our GIS tables to calculate rain delivered INI or RDII. We have a large network of SSO alarms, which the reason we have a large network of SSO alarms is that this helps us react to flooding quickly. There's 18 SSO alarms all over the collection system in areas, low-lying areas or areas that we've known that have issues in the past. This will help us react quicker to prevent any SSO overflows and help prevent basement backups. Meaning we can get out there and bypass pump faster, or if there's something else going on in the system other than the rain, and it helps with our investigations also.
Tony, for those of us who are not working with the wastewater group, could you just describe what an SSO is?
Oh, yes, of course, my bad. The SSO alarm is a sanitary sewer overflow. And every sanitary sewer overflow is actually needs to be recorded to the IEPA. So these alarms, these devices are level alarms that monitor just the level of wastewater in a trunk sewer and our interceptor. And we have these alarms set up for the sanitary sewer overflows at different elevations. They'll tell us if the water gets to the crown of the pipe, that's when we start reacting. If the water continues to increase, we'll have a second alarm that's called a high alarm, kind of generic. But that's the point where we really need to start, regrouping and figuring out what we're going to do to prevent any SSO or the sanitary sewer overflows.
Thanks, Tony.
Rain gauges, like I was saying before, the city of Naperville has a very large network of rain gauges. There's 13 rain gauges all over the city of Naperville and the city of Warrenville. They're broken down into areas of 3-mile diameters. 8 of the rain gauges are owned and maintained by the city of Naperville. And those are mainly at all of our wastewater lift stations. And we also have 5 ADS rain gauges that are owned by the city of Naperville, but are maintained by ADS Environmental Services, and they use these rain gauges when they do the City of Naperville's Rain Delivered I&I annual report that we get every March from ADS Environmental Services. This is just an example of the rain data that we get from the City of Naperville owned rain gauges that are reporting to the City of Naperville SCADA system. It's broken down into all of the different locations of rain gauges, and the data is reported 5-minute, hourly, and daily. The 5-minute is mainly used for our hydraulic model. The hourly and daily rain is used for investigation work and for all of our inflow and infiltration reporting. And like I said, another one of the tools that we use in the city of Naperville is our SCADA data. This is just a quick shot of what our SCADA reporting capabilities are. The screen to the left, the shot to the left is mainly what the pump stations are doing, or the pumps are doing at the station. We record amp draws, wet well levels, how many times the pumps are running, how many starts. And this is actually a great tool to do predictive maintenance at the wastewater lift stations. The screen all the way to the right is actually the flow from the wastewater pump station, and also the rain and the level of the wet well of the pump station. So this is by looking at this data, we can tell, hey, this pump station is getting a large amount of flow from this rain. There's obviously an I&I issue there, and then that's when we start categorizing what pump station or what flow area we're going to start doing our I&I investigation work. Smoke testing is another tool, a great tool when you're doing I&I investigation work. The smoke testing, the huge benefit of smoke testing is you can find a lot of defects fast in a large area. The way the city of Naperville does it, we'll do it in 3-year intervals of going off our rain delivered I&I reports. They break down what area flow basins are worse for peak base infiltration, and those are the areas we'll start doing all of our I&I investigation work at. The smoke testing, we can cover the entire basin in 1 year. We smoke test in 3-year intervals. The reason we do it in 3-year intervals is we find so many defects annually. We need to take a break from doing the investigation work so we can focus on doing the repairs. We find a lot of service lateral leaks. We find a lot of sump pumps hooked up not properly, mainline leaks, manhole leaks, and also the biggest one we find, excuse me, is stormwater, storm systems that are not directly hooked to the wastewater system, but indirectly hooked up to the wastewater system. Great example, we just did 550,000 feet of smoke testing, just completed a couple weeks ago, 486 defects. A majority of them are lateral lines, areas that we know we're going to have to move our lateral rehab program to. Well, we also found several stormwater catch basins that were smoking. They weren't directly connected to the sanitary sewer system, but indirectly connected through infiltration. Stormwater dye flooding is another tool that another great tool that we use after we do the smoke testing. Going back to the stormwater, going back to the storm systems or catch basins that we find smoking during our smoke testing, we'll go back and dye flood those storm sewers, which means we'll go back, isolate a storm sewer, fill it with fluorescent green dye, wait for it to start leaking into the sanitary sewer system, and our CCTV crew and inspection crew goes out if we get a positive results, and goes out, televises the sanitary sewer, locates, categorizes per NASCO. All of our guys are NASCO CCTV certified, so they follow NASCO standard on all investigation work. In the stormwater dye flooding, that green dye, as soon as you open up the sanitary manhole, you'll know right away if the storm sewer is leaking into the sanitary. The guys can start doing their CCTV work. They'll go out and locate every single leak, categorize it, and then we'll take that data, come up with a plan on how we're going to address every single leak that we find in that flow basin. Manhole inspections are done every day. Our maintenance guys, when they're out jet flushing, do visual inspections on every manhole that they open. Last year, we inspected just under 2,000 manholes. We do it several ways. Visual inspection, again, like I just said, with maintenance. We hire a contractor to come out to do 3D manhole scanning, where they actually lower a 3D camera out that scans the entire manhole from channel all the way up to the rim and gives us a complete layout and pinpoints all the defects in that sanitary manhole. And again, going back to the saturated ground inspections during our heavy rainfall events. Kind of already touched about the saturated ground inspections. This screen to the left actually is our SCADA screen at all of our rain gauges. All of our rain gauges are, again, hooked up to our SCADA system. If we get 1.5 inches of rain, which this rain total is adjustable, we can set it to whatever we want. The collection supervisors and field supervisors will get an alarm and from our SCADA system say, hey, you've got heavy rain happening at this rain gauge. That tells them to go out and start executing our I&I investigation program. What's working in the city of Naperville? The city of Naperville is broken down into 172 wastewater flow basins. And when we do I&I work and rehab work, we don't tackle what people say biggest bang for your buck, or we don't tackle, hey, fix this crack, it's the worst crack, and then move somewhere else. It doesn't work, especially if you're trying to reduce your inflow and infiltration. All has to do with water migration, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as we move on. You can go out and fix a piece of pipe. That crack is fixed. Water is just going to migrate somewhere else. So when we do our when we do our I&I work and our sanitary sewer or rehab work, we actually rehab the entire basin to eliminate that issue of water migration. When I say the entire flow basin, I'm talking about we line main lines, we line laterals, we do manhole rehabilitation, we do mainline grouting, which I'll discuss about a little bit further, and lateral grouting. kind of really touched about water migration. People talk about, I'm just going to line a sewer. That's going to fix my I will eliminate my inflow and infiltration problems. Line and sewers do not eliminate or reduce the inflow and infiltration. All water does is move somewhere else. That's why we address the entire flow basin. These are great examples of what I'm talking about in water migration. Hopefully these videos will work. This video here to the left, hopefully everybody can see it. This manhole never leaked before. We just lined a 36-inch trunk sewer. As the liner was getting to exotherm, you could physically see the concrete changing colors from a light gray to a darker and darker gray until it came to a seam or an inlet. The water started pouring out of the seams and the inlets that had never leaked before. Same with this video here to the left. This is a 12-inch sewer main that we actually grouted the liner. You see all that water in there? That is all groundwater. Strictly, there is no wastewater production in there. It's strictly groundwater. Every manhole, after we lined the sewer main, every manhole and or lateral started leaking groundwater. So the water just migrated from one area to the next. And that's a prime example of why we address the entire flow basin. Excuse me, sorry. Kind of touched on this a little bit already. These are the 4 main points of infiltration: defects in manholes, defects in sewer mains, which is number 2. Number 3 is one of the big ones, is where the service lateral from a house ties into the sewer main. And then number 4 is the one where a lot of municipalities, for some reason, hesitate to try to tackle, is the leaks in a sanitary service line. Chemical grouting is, again, a great tool to use for reduction of I&I. I got this video from my friends at NASCO. It's not very long, but mainly what it does is it's mainly showing those 4 points of infiltration that we've already discussed. The manholes, the mainline joints, the services, and it physically shows exactly what happens when you're doing chemical grouting. So kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but this was a great slide that kind of tied in with the 4 points of infiltration, which again, we're going to discuss that a little bit more. This point on, I'm going to actually start talking about the City of Naperville's rehabilitation program. And then after that, I'm going to start talking about some great results that we've done from our I&I work, our rehabilitation work. What's working in the City of Naperville? We'll start with the manhole rehab. There's only 3 processes that the City of Naperville water utility accepts for manhole rehabilitation. I don't want to name names, but in this case, I'll name names. Raven 405, which is an epoxy spray-on liner. Spectra Shield, which is a 3-part structural polyurea structural foam liner, and actually cured in place manhole liners. The City of Naperville won't just let anybody use their rehab product in any of our assets in our collection system. These applications have to be proven. So especially with manholes, for another product other than the 3 that we've already discussed to be accepted in the City of Naperville, they have to the Spectra Shield product, like I was talking about, also is another great product that we've been using since 2013. We've had maybe a 1% failure rate, and again, this has a 10-year warranty. The company has come back and addressed with them. This is the company's in Florida. They had a crew out here after we reported a couple of minor defects. They had a crew out here within 3 days from Florida to come up and repair every issue that we've noticed. The way it works is it's a three-part system that is polyurea, structural foam, and then a protective layer of polyurea. This first application is the first application of polyurea, which is mainly just a primer to get it so the substrate is prepared for the structural liner that is being sprayed in this video here. It comes out to be actually 500 mils thick. So you lose a little bit of space in the manhole. In some cases, it does get a little tight, but the benefits kind of outweigh what little bit of room you lose in the manhole. And this is actually the final application of polyurea. This is the protective polyurea that's being sprayed on the structural foam. Kind of touched about this already. Existing brick manholes. These are actually actual manholes. This manhole is actually right in the intersection of Chicago and Washington, right in downtown. Instead of digging up this manhole, we decided to rehabilitate this manhole, which ended up saving thousands and thousands of dollars in traffic control alone. Picture to the left actually shows the existing brick manhole. Center one shows the strong seal high performance sprayed. In this particular manhole, we sprayed at 1 inch thick, and then the video, or excuse me, the slide to the right is the Raven 405 sprayed at 250 mils. Mainline lining is another great tool that we use in our toolbox of sanitary sewer rehab. This mainly shows before what a clay pipe looks like before. These are actual videos in the city of Naperville, or slides, excuse me. The process of the CIPP lining and what the liner looks like after the fact. In the city of Naperville, if it's clay pipe, if it's asbestos cement pipe, that's what the ACP is, or if it's truss pipe. If you don't know what truss pipe is, it's a plastic pipe that's honeycomb that has concrete embedded inside these honeycombs. If it's any of those three, it automatically gets slated to be lined with our cured in place liner. Either the traditional cured in place liner, which is resin impregnated felt, or now the city, we are leaning more towards UV. There's several reasons why, but we're leaning more glass reinforced UV liners. And then every single one of the liner, no matter what the ASTM calculations say, it has to be a minimum of 6 mils in the city of Naperville, and there's a reason why. I don't know how I'll have enough time to talk about that, but we require every liner, no matter what ASTM says, it has to be a minimum of 6 mils thick. This is the UV process. I'm not sure how we're doing on time. Hopefully we're doing okay. This is the UV process. Just a real quick video of how the UV process is installed. With everything, they do a pre-video, which is required. The area is isolated. They pull a pre-liner into place. The pre-liner is mainly to help with if you have small amounts of active infiltration and to protect the liner as it's being pulled into place. We've been actually, the city of Naperville was one of the first communities in the Midwest to start installing the UV process in sanitary sewers. We did in 2008 with Sartex. We did 485 feet with 14 laterals. There was some learning processes that were discovered that need to be done and addressed during that process. But it's over the years, it's actually been extremely fine-tuned, and the environmental benefits of UV cured in place liners, it's tremendous compared to the traditional felt impregnated liners. So the liner's been installed, the ends are on, and this is actually the light train, the UV light train being pulled to the end. The bag is inflated to 5 to 8 pounds to hold it tight up against the hose pipe, and then now the UV liner is being pulled through, curing the liner in place. I'm going to skip the rest of it. I know I'm running out of time. This is video before and after. This is a CICP, a concrete pipe with a root intrusion. This is a hole inside the existing pipe. I'm going to skip the rest of the video because I know we're tied in. And this is actually what the pipe looks like after it's been lined. You will see as it gets up to the defect, you'll see a dimple where the defect was. But that's normal with felt impregnated liners. And right here is where the defect is at. Chemical grouting and CIPP, we started using a few years ago both processes to help eliminate I&I, especially in trunk sewers and interceptors. Before we install a liner, we'll go through and grout every single joint in that trunk sewer or liner, or excuse me, trunk sewer or interceptor before the CIPP liner is installed, to eliminate any additional I&I, also prevents resin washout, so we have a top-notch quality product being installed. This is just the process. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, so somebody just needs to let me know.
Yeah, we're fine, Tony.
Okay. This is actually the process of chemical grouting a lateral on a CIPP. What this does is it's a bladder being pulled into place. They do an air test. Let me step back a little bit. They install a bladder. They'll come to the lateral, install another bladder up the lateral to whatever the bid specification says. They'll do an air test. NASCO, the North American Society of Sanitary Sewer Companies, they have the standards for chemical grouting and CIPP liners. They'll hold the air pressure for a certain amount of time. If it fails an air test, we'll go ahead and start pumping grout until it passes an air test. If it fails an air test, you know you have an infiltration problem or inflow problem at that piece of pipe. So they'll go out and chemical grout every joint and every lateral before and after the main line is lined. Service lateral lining. City of Naperville currently is using the LMKT liner. Reason being, in our bid specification, we require a full circumference liner at this sanitary sewer main. We've lined them from 2 feet all the way up to about 183 feet with this T-liner process. That is what's considered our full T-liner. We've also had incidences where we have to use a shorty liner or a stub liner, more or less meaning shorter shots. So the way it works is the contractor will come out, TV from inside the sewer main, the service lateral, check its condition, do the locates. After everything is located, another crew will come back and install what's called a vacuum. Will hydro excavate down over the top of the lateral, install a vacuum clean out, and then the liner can be installed from the sanitary sewer main up to that clean out. That's a great process. Reason you need the clean out is to make sure it's easier to clean the lateral from the clean out than it is the main line. But both processes are used, but they also, as the liner is being installed from the main, they use a service camera to watch the liner as it's being unfolded to make sure there is no defects in the liner. And then they watch the process as it's being cured. This is just a real quick videos of the CIP liner being prepared to be installed. The video that's playing right now is actually how the liner is impregnated with the polyester or epoxy resin, depending on what your bid specification says. This is actually the liner being installed into the launcher. That is Dawn liquid soap. That's the only thing that most liner companies use nowadays. It's a lot more environmentally friendly than oils and stuff that were using back in the day. And this video shows the liner being installed, the launcher being installed into the main line, getting ready to being pulled into place so the lateral can be launched up the lateral that you're working on. These are just videos showing, like I was telling you about, why they have the vacuum. It's mainly showing the video to the right is the contractor. He's telling the operator of the launcher where exactly to position the launcher so the bladder can go up the lateral. These two videos are actually just showing the liner coming out. They're not the greatest, but those are the best ones I can get. But I thought they were a great example of showing how the lateral was actually pushed out of the launcher and pushed up the lateral into place. And these are before and after videos. I'm not sure how fast these ones are. The one that's playing now is the before, what it looked like, the service looked like, the clay service looked like before it was lined. In the video to the left, it's mainly showing what the lateral looks like after it was lined. Again, everything is done through that cleanup that was installed. And again, can't say it enough, the vacuum process is done when you're doing full length liners. So if you're doing anything longer than 10 feet, you're going to end up having to install a vacuum. One thing I wanted to note on the lateral lining that didn't show in this video is every single liner is marked. The address of the liner, the length of the liner, and the date the liner was installed. So that's a great video showing how the liner is installed and what the final product looks like, all the way from the cleanup and all the way to the city main, including the T-liner that does the full circumference of the city main. Mainline lateral grouting, kind of touched about already. The city of Naperville, in certain areas, we chemical grout quite a few services, about 150 services a year with just chemical grout. Excuse me. The chemical grouting has been, we've found great success with the chemical grouting, which I'm going to talk a little bit further on as we start talking about the results of our programs. The process of lateral grouting, the city of Naperville, when we do a lateral grouting, the lateral meaning the sewer line from the house to the city main. The city of Naperville will install a vacuum, same exact process as the lateral lining, but we will actually chemical grout the entire service from the mainline connection all the way up to the foundation of the house. The way that is done is the clean out is installed, again, the same process as the lateral lining. Contractor will come in and grout the mainline portion first, as we showed in that one video. And then from the clean out, they use what's called a push packer. They will chemically grout every single joint from the clean out to the main, pull that push packer out, flip it around and go from the clean out all the way up to the foundation of the house. So one thing I want is the warranty testing. Every time we do a chemical grout, everything has to have a 11th-month warranty at no charge. Warranty test done on 20% of all the chemical grout installed at no cost to the city of Naperville. So that's worked out really well for us. So those are a very, very, very quick view of what the city of Naperville is doing on sanitary rehabilitation. Now, I can talk months about this stuff, but also keep in mind, for a very good sanitary rehabilitation and I&I reduction program, if you're not doing the inspections, you're not doing your users, yourself, the owners, justice. Great example, manhole rehab. There should be an inspector, whoever, if you're a municipality, a sanitary district, whoever you are, if you're paying somebody to do the work, you should have an inspector out there watching every process being done. You don't have to watch stuff cured. It's like watching grass grow, but mainly watching the prep work, especially with manhole rehab. Prep work is probably the most important key portion of doing manhole rehab. If the prep work is not done correctly, the product is going to fail. I don't care what the product is. I don't care what the salesman says. If your prep work is not done properly, the manhole rehab product does not have a good substrate to adhere to, and it's just going to fail prematurely. So in the city of Naperville, when we do our manhole rehab, there is a form with every process that we use that is filled out. There's an inspector out during the prep work. Besides watching them do the prep work, they also inspect all the equipment to make sure it's working properly. If there's any chemical grouting done, they'll remove the form they fill out for the chemical grouting. And after the prep work and they start installing the rehab process, the city of Naperville does 4 other inspections other than the visual inspection. Again, visual inspection is one of the 4, pardon me there. But while the product is being applied, one of our inspectors is doing what's called a wet film thickness inspection, which we're going to get into more detail as I move on. But we also do a spark test, or a lot of people call it a holiday test, and then an adhesion test. The wet film thickness test is done by a city of Naperville representative, where they will go in the manhole, or they will have the contractor measure the exact thickness in certain areas all over the manhole. With a thickness gauge, the contractor has to physically measure the thickness of the epoxy and or polyurea that they're applying, make sure it meets the bid specification, and they have to show that measurement to the city of Naperville representative. Spark testing is a great test, a holiday test for if you're finding defects. You know, you'll see certain things when you're doing visual, you'll see certain things with the wet thickness, but you're not going to see every single pinhole. What a spark test is an electrical voltage that's being sent through the finished product. And if you see any arcing, small little arcs on any portion of the liner and or epoxy being sprayed, there's a pinhole there. That's the reason why it's there. So what they'll do is they'll do a spark test depending on the voltage that's required. It goes all the way up to 25,000 volts. It depends on what ASTM you're using. So this is a holiday test being done. It's just a wire brush that has electrical current. I don't know if you saw that arc there. The inspector just moves the brush across while the current electrical voltage is going through it. And like I said, any pinhole and or defect that you see an arc indicates a defect in that liner. They'll go ahead and circle it with a permanent marker and then come back at a later date and fix every single one of those pinholes. And then they have to redo the holiday test all over again. And the same thing with adhesion tests, especially if you're doing epoxies. You should do an adhesion test. I know it kind of does damage to the liner, but that should be written in the bid specification. After the adhesion test, the contractor has to come back and fix it. What an adhesion test is a dolly is glued to the epoxy. A hydraulic unit is hooked up to that dolly the following day, and at a certain pounds per square inch, they apply hydraulic pressure. If the liner pulls off and the substrate doesn't, the liner didn't heal, it's a fail. If the liner and the substrate come off, the substrate failed. So you know the liner actually adhered to the substrate and that's a pass. So we do these on every single, all of these inspections are done on every single manhole rehab project. Mainline cure in place liner inspections, same thing. There's forms filled out. The inspector actually goes to the wet out facility. So depending on who the lining company is, we have to go out and witness our liners being wet out. The inspectors also inspect traffic control. They do site inspections. bypass pumping inspections, visual liner inspections, meaning is the liner is coming out of the reefer truck being installed through the shooters. Our inspectors actually watching the liner being pulled through to make sure there's no defects that happen while they were shipping and or packing the liner inside the truck. Where they were every CIP lining company is required to give us all of their curing reports, and then the recurring reports has to have temperatures, times, sample locations, mill thicknesses, a lot more other information. And then also every cured in place mainline project that we do, that we require them to supply us 10 live samples. There's not a whole lot of time for me to talk about how we do the samples, but if somebody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to discuss that with you. And then video inspections. A lot of this is another one that can take a lot of time. I just threw it on here. The third we do, if you look at the ASTM, you do a pre and a post. City of Naperville, we do a middle inspection before any service laterals are reinstated, and then the post. The middle inspection, if you're going to find any defects in a liner, I don't care if it's a cured in place, a felt liner, or a glass reinforced liner, you're going to find every single defect in that liner during that middle video inspection. Reason being is the ends are not cut off. The service connections are not reinstated. So if there's any water migration or if there's any pinholes in the liner, you're going to find them right away. If the vacuum patch is leaking, you're going to find them. The second you start reinstating service laterals, water is going to migrate to there, and all these other defects you're never going to see. And then we specifically sit and watch every service lateral be reinstated. They have to be reinstated 100%, so it doesn't affect our process of lateral lining that happens at a later date. This is just a quick report of the mainline CICP inspections. Chemical grouting is the same. The inspector is required to inspect all of the equipment. We are required to do a cup test. What a cup test is where they take part A and part B. Those are the active ingredient and the catalyst. They mix the two together, look at how long it takes for the grout to set up. They record that on their form. That's a whole nother process. We don't have enough time to talk about. There's a barrel test that's required to be done every day. Not just one barrel test at the start of the project, but every day they have to prove. A barrel test is where they stick the bladder in just a piece of pipe, above ground piece of pipe, and they inflate the bladder tight up against the piece of pipe to make sure that the bladder doesn't have any air leaks. That falls into the air test. They inspect the entire grouting process. They'll inspect the finished product, and then, like I stated before, the contractor has to come back at an 11-month period and retest, air test every a minimum of 20%. If more than 20%, if there's a certain percentage of that 20% that fails, they're required to do an air test on the entire project.
Get up here.
Well, these are the forms that are filled out for chemical grouting. And these are the forms that are filled out for the lateral lining. Communication is a great way for your project to be successful and to have a long running project. Communication is key. We take a lot of time on every single project that we do, not just for the year, but every project that we do. We communicate to the public what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the benefits to both public and the public and private side. Talk to homeowners associations. We physically go door to door and talk to the homeowners, leave letters to every single homeowner, and then besides that, talking to our management and our city councils, telling them, hey, we're doing this because of these are the benefits that are from our programs. This is just a quick map of some of the processes. There's a map made like this for every single sanitary sewer rehab or I&I program. This one just happens to be the lateral grouting that we're doing in a subdivision in Clear Creek. It shows the laterals that are, how many laterals that need to be grouted, what type of grout's done, and where we are on that process. These maps get updated every Monday morning. Results of the city of Naperville's INI. We've had some great results with our INI work. These graphs mainly show the 4 areas that we've been working in over the years: Burning Tree, Hobson Mill, Prescott, Riverview. These are all flow basin areas. That's where the flow meters are. Riverview includes the city of Naperville's downtown area. The column all the way to the right shows how much reduction, INI peak reduction, has been done in these flow areas due to our INI investigation and sanitary sewer rehab program. The statement here is from the statement all the way to the right is actually from an engineer that I have a lot of respect for, that works for a company, pretty much saying that this is pretty much the best flow reduction he's ever seen in a flow area in his 32 years of doing data analysis. So I take that with a lot of pride. Again, this is the same engineer. I assembled a quick comparison of the wet weather flows performing a 4-hour sewer shed, and the improvements have been impressive. The improvements may be the best I have seen in basins of this size. This is kind of what he was talking about. This is peak INI time, comparing 2000, a 3-inch rain event that happened in 2013, 2014, compared to a rain event that happened in 2017. The Riverview area, again, includes the downtown Naperville area, where we've done lateral lining, manhole rehab, and mainline CIPP and grouting. In 2000, you can see in the 2017, our peak infiltration rate was just over 3 million. But before we did this rehab work, a similar rain event that happened in 2013-14, we had 7.5 million MGD of peak INI. So that's pretty much, showing, there's the data proving that our INI rehabilitation program works. This is another one for that Hobson Mill area, same results. Peak wise, we're knocked off about 7.5 million gallons of INI compared from 2013 3-inch rain event compared to 2017 3-inch rain event. Prescott one's is interesting. This one we haven't done any lateral lining. We've mainly just done chemical grouting. Same rain event from 2017 3-inch compared to a 3-inch rain of 2013-14. Peak infiltration wise is down about 3 million gallons a day. And this is mainly just from chemical grouting. This is just another slide that we've been kind of advertising the heck out of. City of Naperville's results system-wide. The orange line shows our current influent from our wastewater treatment plant. The green line kind of shows what, if we weren't doing any INI work, where our flow would be. And the blue columns are actually our population. So in a really quick glance, you can see our population continues to grow, but you can see our flows keep going down, down, and down. Positive impact. This is, again, just a copy of the slide that was on the City of Naperville's website. I don't want to spend too much time on that. And some of the results from our INI sewer rehab, other than a lot of people focus on when they're doing INI work or rehab work, they mainly focus on, I don't have this many wastewater backups, or the flow to my treatment plant has gone down this much. But they forget about all the other stuff, especially has to do with maintenance costs. All the savings you have in maintenance costs. Great example, our customer service calls. 2007, we had 600 customer service calls, meaning we have to send a crew out to respond to all 1,600 of those calls. 2019, we only had 295 calls, saving quite a bit of money. Sewer maintenance costs, areas that we've had the root cut every single year with a root saw. and our jet flushing trucks now are down to, we only have to flush them once every 4 years, saving a large amount of money annually. Reduced chance, this one is the one that a lot of people don't even take into consideration, is the safety. The money you save by people not getting hurt, meaning if you go back to what I was talking about on reduced sewer costs, instead of root cutting every year, that same area, now we're only jet flushing every 4 years. Think about it. There's a lot less manhole covers that these guys have to lift. 80-pound manhole covers, lifting every day equals shoulder injuries. So these shoulder and back injuries are being, the safety alone almost pays for the rehab process. Reduced pumping costs at wastewater pump stations. If we're knocking the floor down, we're using a lot less electricity, not having to do as much maintenance. During high flows, we're not sending crews out to bypass pump around those pump stations because they can't handle flows. And the normal annual flows to your wastewater treatment plant goes down. I don't talk about that one too much because, that's like the cliche. I like to focus on, this is actually what, you're not just saving money by reducing flow to your treatment plant. All these other items, maintenance items alone, save so much money. The results are tremendous. Our CMOM program, capacity management operation and maintenance, is actually required by our IEPA permit. This is updated annually. That's given to the IEPA in January of every year. It's a full breakdown of our collection system maintenance program, and also part of our Naperville's permit with the IEPA. We're required to supply them a 10-year I&I program and an annual status report of that program. We usually try to get that to them on December 31st of every year. So both of these are on the City of Naperville's website, if anybody wants to look at them. And with that being said, again, I apologize for my long-windedness about all of this stuff. I'm very passionate about it, but I can spend months, weeks talking about this stuff. If there's any questions, it's my contact information. So Stephen, it's all you.
Yeah, that was great. I'm currently working on rehabbing my rental property out, and I'm never going to complain about all the maintenance work I need there again. So Tony, we had a question in from one of the municipal members and suggesting that perhaps you want to share this presentation with other municipal members, as this obviously a lot of things you're addressing are things they have in common. But they had an additional question was, have any of the lessons learned from this process been applied back into your capital improvement or permitting? So the example that they give is the minimum diameter of your manholes, for example. Are new manholes being resized to take into account what you have learned from the upkeep?
Oh, to answer that question, we haven't noticed anything with that we had to change the size of our manholes for upkeep. Our standard manhole is obviously 48-inch in diameter, but we also install other processes while that manhole is being installed to prevent any other infiltration issues and H2S issues while the manhole is being installed.
Okay, yeah, and I think what they were meaning was, that you were pointing out that as you did the treatments, that they could get a little tight in there once that you had done a rehabilitation. And then did you think about increasing the diameter to kind of offset that for future?
No, our standard process is installing 48-inch manholes. So,
okay.
But I do have a great example I can add to their point. Back in the day, in the late, when I was a much younger person, in the 80s and the 90s, we installed a process that was called manhole renew. Keep in mind, every process supposedly has a 50-year life. We installed manhole renew, which manhole renew is you are building forms inside the existing manhole and pouring concrete in between the existing manhole and those forms. So now your 48-inch manhole is now only 24-inch manhole.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point now from those being installed in the 80s and the 90s that those manholes they're starting to fail you cannot do any more rehab process to them. They're going to be way too small to do anything. So those go to our manhole replacement program. So that's why we have a combination of manhole rehab and a manhole replacement. So if you see the city of Naperville doing a manhole replacement, most likely it was a manhole that was rehabbed back in the 80s and 90s with manhole renew, and the manhole renew is starting to fail. That's really the only time we start playing with manhole sizes.
So another question I had was, you talked about the sort of prioritization system, and that you didn't necessarily go for the most obvious, as you put it, the biggest crack. Could you revisit that briefly, just about how you prioritize where you're going to spend your efforts?
Yeah, actually, it goes back to the four process. It goes back to the main four process. We will look our annual I&I report that we give from our flow meter engineering firm for flow meter provider. They look at what I&I impacts have according to the flow meters in every single sewer basin. And then we will collect that data and we'll discuss what customer services, and it's categorized. You know, Hops and Mill has they're your number one priority. You have the most I&I, peak and base infiltration I&I in this area. And it's categorized all the way down to the top 25. We always we try to tackle the top 5. So we'll pull those top 5 out, and we'll take the other data that we're collecting, customer service calls, what the crews are seeing out in the field as they're doing sewer cleaning, and what the pump stations in those basins are saying, how they are performing. And we'll categorize those by that data, and we'll take that data, compare it to the ADS data, and that's how we determine which flow basins we're going to work on. And our standard practice is we are going to rehab the entire basin. We're not going to address just the main lines, laterals that are cracked, or the main lines that are leaking. Reason being, like I was stating before, can't say this enough, all has to do with water migration. You can line every single sewer pipe in your sewer system. I can guarantee you'll probably have maybe 2% reduction in I&I. Because the water is just going to migrate someplace else.
Yeah.
So that biggest bang for the buck actually, in this case, doesn't work. It's proven time and time.
Interesting. Well, with that, we're going to move on with the rest of the meeting. Tony, you're quite welcome to stay and hear what else we talk about. But thanks. You know, it is always eye-opening to remember the invisible infrastructure that makes our way of life possible, and the application of technology and expertise to it is always impressive.
Well, thank you everybody for listening to me rumble. I want to thank the work group for inviting me. I enjoy doing this stuff. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me or contact Stephen, and I'll get you whatever information you need. So everybody have a great day.
Yeah, and you, Tony. Thank you.
Tony, I know for one, I'll give more thought to grouting. So I think we can do more in our program here. So we appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Good.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, so we'll start the business portion of our meeting. Next is discussion about our NPDS permit special conditions.
Yeah, so in at the end of September, there we held a meeting for the special assessment, the special assessment permit holders. These are wastewater treatment facilities. As you know, they are paying they've offset phosphorus removal during the last period and pay into a fund that then funds all of the physical projects that Dina and I will be talking about in a few minutes. What we're talking about here is as this moves into its fourth phase, and we are putting together this nutrient implementation plan for all of the wastewater treatment facilities in the member. And this is both the DRSEW and the lower DuPage. We had to talk about what the modeling that we had a presentation on a few months ago here, and what the water, the ambient, that's the in-stream targets are for phosphorus and how we would get there. We had a lot of discussion about those items, and what we're currently working on is a sort of a fully fleshed out proposal for what exactly the target would be and what our estimated costs and any assessments that would go along with it would be. I was hoping to get that to members last week. I still haven't quite finalized it, but we should be getting it to the treatment plant community next week, I'm hoping. And what we'll be asking for is a kind of well, it'd be a straight vote on, if this proposal for the center part of our NIP works. The idea would be that we would be in a position to negotiate with our environmental partners and our the state and federal regulators, hopefully to have something locked down towards the end of the year so we can get some clarity for planning horizons for our wastewater treatment plant members. Going to move on to final kind of a couple of bullets. I am pursuing certain items for Elmhurst. There is a Elmhurst would like a some sort of guarantee from IEPA that their permits sort of isn't going to be till 2023. It's not going to be issued, and they would just want to make sure that they are getting the extension. We have pursued that with IEPA. Dina and I hopefully will be meeting with IEPA towards the end of the month, and we will raise this item with them then. So that's just what the staff at Elmhurst know. We haven't forgotten that. Ditto with Glendale Heights. I'm working on a formal MOU with them, which covers the fact that just because they're not paying special assessments next year and then through to the end of their current permit does not mean that the DRSCW is still not responsible for pulling together their nutrient implementation plan and all of the parts that go into making that up. Once again, that is just on a back burner at the moment until we get this nutrient implementation plan item pulled together about what the various scenarios moving forward on that would look like. Okay, then I'm going to move on to, and once again, any of the treatment plan community that are on the call and have any questions about all of those items, can always contact me directly. Moving on to Faywell Dam, trying to set up a projects committee meeting sometime in the next 2 weeks to talk about what the current plan is. We have a plan that we have submitted to County Stormwater, who of course are the owner of the dam. And we also have a memorandum of understanding that we've been working on with them, trying to get those two elements locked down. And if we get a thumbs up on the plan from County Stormwater and from the projects committee, we would be moving into a contract and fabrication phase with BK Riverfish, who designed the fish ladder system. And then County Stormwater, according to the MOU, would then be floating a contract for getting it installed on delivery, maybe breaking that into 2 parts, possibly. In other words, 1 part getting the footings and protection system in place, and then the actual installation of the ladder itself. But yeah, work's moving forward on that. We are contacting IEPA for asking for an extension on that project. Obviously, although it's a small project, there's a lot of complicated moving parts. And the protection of the Faywell Dam is obviously the most critical part of that project, is that we do nothing there that will either compromise the dam or compromise the functioning of the dam as a flood control structure. Grawie Mill Dam, Dana, do you want to run members through what the latest updates there are?
I'll be very brief. Most of the details are within the agenda, and so I won't repeat all of those, but we're mainly focusing on our response to permits. All of our permit applications have been submitted, and we have received our first round of permit comments back from all of the agencies. So we're working with our consultant team over at Hay & Associates to go ahead and respond to all of those comments, and we're getting ready to submit those comments back. So it's obviously with all permits, it's sort of a back and forth until we can go ahead and finally wrap up those permits. So that's mainly what we've been working on with that, and making good progress. So hopefully we'll have some updates on that in the next couple meetings as we start to move forward in that process. And if anyone has any questions on anything specific, just reach out to me and I'll be glad to talk you through those processes.
Thanks, Dina. So then the other item is Springbrook Phase 2. As you know, this is a completed project. We had noted, which I've alluded to here, one of our monitoring teams had found some very high pHs at this site, and staff and Wheaton Sanitary District staff went out and investigated, and we concluded that it was caused by high levels of benthic algae at the site, which seem to be driving up, CO2 concentrations in the water, and so, creating these acidic pHs. So we'll be working on with the Forest Preserve to try to think, if we can observe that in future years, about how that may be resolved or ameliorated in some way. Southern East Branch Enhancement Project. We have had delivery of the final report and the plan set for this project from Interfluve. As you know, this project is in a holding pattern at the moment because there has been considerable interest from the Army Corps of Engineers in funding this project for us, which would obviously allow us twofold improvement. It would actually increase the amount of funding we have for this particular location, but it would also allow us to flip our funding over to another project, possibly upstream of, immediately upstream of this, allowing us to rehabilitate a much greater area of the stream corridor. We should be hearing, we're hoping to hear in the next couple of months about that. It's very promising at the moment, but get confirmation that that is indeed the way that the funding is going to work. Okay, then moving. Oh, and those plan sets and reports have been shared with the projects committee and with the stakeholder group, who is a group that was put together. Those are the landowners through that particular section of stream. So we have, we're going to have an update now on our ongoing Klein Creek Streambank Stabilization project, which is also a project in our permit. And we actually have, this is a project between DRCW with the Village of Carroll Stream. And we've got a brief presentation about the ongoing construction activities at the site. And it's going to be Greg Ulreich with Village of Carroll Stream is going to take us through it. Hey, Greg.
Hey, Stephen, how's it going? So yes, I will do my best to keep it brief, but I am excited about it. I put a lot of work in this little presentation here, so I'll move fast, Stephen.
Well, yeah, we're good. So go through it thoroughly.
All right, so we called the section 1, and it got split up when the RCW agreed to fund half of it. The other half is IAPA 319, so we have 1A and 1B. 1A is, this is Klein Creek. It starts from the top and it flows to the bottom. And we're talking about the red and yellow section as one, but what we have as of last week is pretty much completed section 1A, which is what was funded by the DRSCW. So that's good news, and I want to share kind of what the construction details were. So this is Conn Road in the foreground and our wastewater treatment plant in the background. And over to the left is the fire station. And then this is the creek after the trees were removed, and the diversion channel is getting put in place in the background there. All this open space that you see all the way up to the residential properties and up to the turf grass and the wastewater treatment plant will all be replanted with native vegetation. So then moving on is the drone footage that we got done, which is kind of cool stuff that takes it through, both sections here. And this was right after all the trees. So this is upstream. Moving downstream, this is the section funded by the IEPA. You see this bridge here, and just after that is the wastewater treatment plant's outfall, and then we start into the DRSCW section. We've got a temporary bridge there for access, and this is the downstream end of the DRSCW section. And then looking upstream now, there's our diversion channel that's being constructed. And we're back to the upstream section. I'll stop it there and we'll just move on. This is, the construction of the remeander that we are doing. So the existing stream bed is behind me, and these guys are carving out what will become the new stream bed. You've got the stream bed material in the lower right foreground, and then you've got couple excavators working, and then they're hauling off to another location on site, which is where all the dirt is being dumped. So this is the tow-wood going in. So we had about 100 trees that were removed and put back in as tow-wood. And most of them were where it was dug out, trenched behind, and we get about 10 or 15 feet of log. And when they could, they kind of embedded it into the bank, but most of them were just kind of laid down. There's a footer log that you can see kind of in this upper video here. And, you know, that's what they all rest on. And then there's some backfill of rock. I'll skip to the next where we do some rock filling here. So the first layer is the bigger rock cobblestone. It's the same size that goes on the stream bed for stabilization. And then we had some mixing in of the more sandy, finer material, but sand being the smallest that it gets. And that'll fill in all the voids there. And so everything is pretty much rock as a backfill. So in the background, you can see Stephen and Eric Knighty and Aaron Pandy, who came out to witness this in the beginning and, you know, provide some great direction to Earthworks, who was doing the construction. And they made some minor adjustments, and hopefully we have a product that is going to last. Here is, you know, just some pictures of the stream bed, stream bank that's getting done. And there's they're just, they take the boulders here, you can see in the upper right, and then they sprinkle on the finer sand material in there because we're going to be planting the stream bank in this rock. And so we need some kind of growth medium. And so what product they're using is here in this video that is not playing anymore, but this is it's just bank run rock that they brought in. And all these cobbles that are here are just sieved out of this original bank run material. It's Earth Inc. So here is when they introduced flow a couple of weeks ago. Oh, sorry. Let's try that again. So there's the sheet pile that was holding everything back, and he knocked it down and slowly let the flow come in and keep all the sediment that settled out upstream of there. And then I took video here so we could track what the thalweg is doing. We were putting in a lot of meanders in here that didn't exist, and so it was important that our thalweg went in those outer curves and underneath those root wads, and didn't, Eric Knighty said that he's had some lessons learned on previous projects where the meander didn't quite get the thalweg to follow the outside curve, and so it would kind of skip over a curve and hit downstream or upstream of a curve and erode there instead of where, you know, the stream bank had been stabilized with the root wads. So it was very important here to make sure that we saw that thalweg do what we wanted it to do. And another example, this is just maybe a week after the water was introduced, the thalweg being out here underneath the root wads, and then the point bar being here, and you could already see some aggradation of the sediment into the point bar, and the thalweg, you know, more or less staying clean. And here is what we call the rock substrate areas. So Klein Creek is, you know, really was just an old wetland that then became a creek with urbanization. And so we don't really have a lot of fall, and we can't do the traditional rock and riffle type things. We call the rock substrate area, where we put in this row of boulders. It's about 6 inches above, gives a little pool on the upstream side, and then, you know, some boulder habitat on the downstream side. And this is what it looks like as the flow was first introduced. Moving on, so I don't think I have any more pictures, but here's our stream barbs. We only have 4 of them in this stretch, but these are fairly large boulders that create that low flow area and push the thalweg out to the middle of the stream on this curve and get it into the Conn Road bridge underpass there. That's the downstream end of the project. Then we did, with the remeanders, a couple of the areas where the stream bed used to be. became oxbows with some habitat wood and some habitat boulders. So I'm standing here on the first oxbow. To the left is the diversion channel. To the right is the new remeandered channel. And then in the middle is the oxbow and what the channel used to do. And we have a lot of rock protecting it for the higher flows. When it does overtop and go down into that oxbow, we don't want it to carve out that straight stretch again and get rid of our remeander. This is before and after in quotes, because to the right is not really, it's a different stretch, but that's essentially, you know, what the stream looked like to the right, and then to the left is what, you know, a finished product is. And with that, happy Halloween, and a couple of pictures of my nightmares, which kids throwing the rocks that we engineered so carefully. That is my kid, so it's okay. Black cat that I had to cross, and then a newspaper article on what the Streambank widening, how they did it in the past. And that project failed. That was too much of a mess. They were trying to bulldoze with the water still in the creek, and was a complete failure. And why we're back several decades later. So, all right. Thanks, Stephen, for letting me do that presentation, and I will shut up now.
No, that was excellent. I like the inset video clips into all of those, really give a good sense of being on the site.
Yeah, and so there's those photos too are available, and more if anybody wants to, you know, click through them themselves. So we can share that link later. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for all your support. It's pretty exciting, and it looks like the seed will go down in a couple weeks, and we'll see some plugs and plants going in next year. And
So, Greg, if we wanted to organize we often do like field trips out to our projects. If we wanted to organize one of those, would you have preferred? I realize we're getting into the rainy season, as it were, but that's something we could talk about organizing for interested members.
yeah, well, if you want to do it over Thanksgiving, we can make it a potluck and everybody bring, you know, a dish, and we'll just kind of yeah, no, anytime I'm happy to do it.
And you can show us your stone throwing technique.
Yes, I'm pretty good.
Hey, Greg, do you have any public education out there, and how are you singing your song about that project?
Yeah, so the IPA had you know, signs, that informational signs that we had to post, and then I've got a website that I set up, and we've got e-newsletters and social media that we blast out, and then we recently put up a YouTube playlist for Streambank stabilization, and then advertise that through social media. So some of the introduced flow videos got uploaded there, and I'm hoping to do a few more construction videos that I showed here, so that people can take a look at construction in action. So
Greg, we have a question for you, is when will the IEPA section be construction completed?
yeah, we're hoping for that to finish this calendar year.
You got a compliment on your footage, and they can't wait to see the final results.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
So spoiler alert, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit in the agenda. Greg has agreed to fill a vacancy in our board. And so welcome, Greg. And we'll get to that item also, but we appreciate you taking your time for the presentation, and also to join our board meetings now.
Yeah, very excited about it. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to continuing Mr. Knudsen, my predecessor's legacy here. So I will shut off.
Thanks, Greg. Okay, I am going to move down the project list until the qual model update. This is under number 7, nutrient implementation plan. And obviously we already talked about the meeting that we had with the permit holders about what this the integral parts of this plan were going to look like, specifically for the wastewater community, who are going to bear the brunt of the nutrient reductions. So the qual model, we had a presentation about this at this meeting a few months back. We're continuing to develop and refine that, including looking at running we had run the 0.5, which annual TP limit scenario, and that we're refining and developing all of those as part of our overall proposal. This is what's set out there is very detailed in terms of all the model scenarios that we've run and are looking at. So again, any questions on that, contact Dina or I, and we'll talk to you about it rather than revisiting them all here. Non-point source feasibility analysis. This is for stormwater component of the phosphorus loading to our riverways. As you know, we already published that report. We're adding a couple of details to it from DuPage DOT and Illinois Tollway. But except for that, that part is largely complete. So we did carry out our expanded DO monitoring in the summer. We did this at reference sites, which are, of course, are sites that are biologically performing. And so what we're looking there is to gather additional data on what a performing stream looks like in terms of all the nutrients, dissolved oxygen cycles, etc. So we can better replicate that in our waterways and increase our chances of gaining the general use level of aquatic organisms. That analysis or data is currently with staff and is being reviewed. IPS, the final report the draft final was sent to us by MBI. Finally, as you know, that was held back for nearly a year as the principal author, Ed Rankin, was seriously ill. Glad to say it looks like he has made a complete recovery. And Chris Yoder and myself worked through the report and got it out to everybody. We got comments back. Those are just need to finalize integrating the last few, and that's going to be supplied to MBI, and we will get the final report out of that. But the draft form was available to everyone in the projects committee and has been shared with some of our environmental partners who were interested in the outcomes from that, specifically, of course, what it was suggesting for total phosphorus. We're ongoing with our contract also with MBI about looking at the relationships between continuous DO and aquatic organisms. The IPS tool that we developed did not fully develop the DO relationship with aquatic organisms because we just didn't have enough continuous DO data to be able to do that. What we did was we harvested a lot of data up from IEPA and from partners, and we have supplied that to MBI, and we're trying to develop that more thoroughly. We see this as an integral part of the nutrient implementation plan because part of what phosphorus does, of course, is drive some of the dissolved oxygen fluctuations that we have in our waterways. So we want to better understand what a dissolved oxygen output for a healthy river would look like in our area. Staff setting up a conference call with MBI to go through the work done to date. And then the final item in this category, item number 8, Springfield regulatory and legislative update. As I said, Dina and I have been talking to IEPA about getting a meeting at the end of the month. If we can't get that at the end of the month, we'll have it sometime in November. But once again, this is to run through our sort of permit update and also then talk to them about the NIP, which of course is a big deliverable at the end of the year that has long-term consequences for how we manage our water quality in DuPage and Cook County. Moving on to non-permit activities, our bioassessment plan. Once again, the East Branch report was also held back because of Ed Rankin's illness, but we do have the West Branch one, which has been delivered. Staff has reviewed it, issued comments, sent back to MBI. The Salt Creek one, which carried out last year, is still outstanding. Moving on into monitoring, I really don't have any update.
Stephen, can I mention the RFP?
Yes.
If everyone's aware.
Oh, yes, please. Sorry, Dina.
Sorry. So as you guys may remember that as part of the monitoring, we use MBI as part of the bioassessment, we use MBI for the biological and physical habitat monitoring, but we do need a laboratory for the chemical monitoring. And they do the water chemistry the sediment chemistry, and they also handle the expanded DO water chemistry as well. And because all three of the groups, that TCF staff, so the DRSEW, the Lower DuPage River Watershed Coalition, and the Lower Des Plaines Watershed Group, all use similar programs. With the last contract, we did a joint contract looking for that laboratory to get better pricing instead of each of us going at it separately. Having a current contract, like sort of through TCF and the work groups, sort of made sense. So we're that contract was for 5 years, and Microvac previously had it, has expired. So we are going back out for bid again. We sent out an RFP with a notice of intent to bid, and we got 3 interested firms, all of which we've worked with in some capacity over the years. So Microvac, First Environmental, and Suburban Laboratories have all issued a notice of intent to bid, and their RFPs are due on Friday. So we should have some information on that soon. And then so sort of staff is sort of handling that with some input from some key monitoring committee meeting, monitoring folks from the various committees, various work groups to sort of help us select that contractor.
And just noting that allowing us to take those economies of scale has meant that the costs of our monitoring per unit have significantly deviated from our projections. In other words, it's been a lot cheaper. We'll have to see how inflation affects that, but even so, it's really been a big help to our budget that we had that kind of purchasing power, for all of the groups. And talking of working jointly, chlorides, moving on to item number 11, workshops. So these workshops, during COVID, we moved online away from the in-person workshops. And this had a number of effects. One, it allowed us to provide the workshops more cheaply, but it also allowed us to work in conjunction with partners, notably Lower DuPage and with the Lake County folks. And of course, now with the time limited water quality folks over to our east towards the city. These workshops virtually have been very well attended. And it's been a lot less work for staff, frankly, as well as cutting costs. So we had 6 of those this year. We'll be having a full report on it at our December meeting about how many people attended and such, but it went well. We got good feedback. We did do an analysis of questions asked after the workshop, and that showed that broadly people felt that these workshops were as good as doing it in person, though there was a significant minority preferred the in-person, about a quarter of respondees. So we'll be reviewing that with our partners and recommending if we're going to have some sort of hybrid in the future or stick with virtual or move back to the older model. Hoping to get the salt management questionnaire out finally as we're moving into the winter season and people are reviewing their information. They typically have that in their fingertips, so a good time to get that going. And we also have with us online today, we have Jennifer Hammer from the Conservation Foundation. Jen, you're going to share some education materials that was produced by the Sensible Salting Initiative.
Yep. All right, let's see. All right. So through the Salt Smart Collaborative, which has been a collection of organizations across our region, we've been working on putting together outreach materials as well as some different training resources. And so really kind of trying to elevate the work that all of these different organizations are doing as far as trying to really make those reductions in chlorides. Just hitting on what Stephen mentioned about, obviously we had our workshops, those are done, but here are a couple other resources out there if you're looking for additional training resources or additional information for your staff. And then really what I wanted to share today was more about the outreach materials that we have specifically for communities to share with their residents as they are potentially changing or making new, doing new practices. So at saltsmart.org, there's a outreach section that has all of these materials available. Oh yeah, one more slide of just some of the other training materials and videos that are posted up there from different webinars that we've done. Some links to the SaltWise webinars up in Wisconsin. There's been some great information there, and then a couple of the videos that Connie Fortin has shared through some of her trainings. For the outreach materials, we have a number of different blog posts, both in the, kind of modeling how those posts are shared, as well as just having them as the Word document that you can take and put into whether it's a newsletter or a blog post that your community may have. We have a number of different social media posts that can be used. We are really trying to increase the ones on using liquids and anti-icing. We have a number of posters that we've done over the last couple of years that can be used, posters to put up at an entryway about making sure you're clearing snow before you're putting salt out, some stuff geared towards commuters, and then again, just really trying to share information about anti-icing. And our poster for this year, kind of letting folks know the more things we keep out of our roadways, the faster roadways will get cleared. So, particularly thinking about like if it's garbage day and it's snowing, keep your garbage totes up in your driveway, not out on the road. We get the roads cleared faster. We have some other materials with kind of comic strip, kind of trying to keep things fun for residents. We have bookmarks and cups that are available to be able to hand out at events. We have some webinars that are posted up there that are really geared towards residents. So there's one that we did with DuPage County, I think it was last year, that's really geared towards, what can residents do. There's also a PSA video that's posted up there. It was one that was done by a community up in Minnesota, but they were willing to share the video with us, and we were able to put our own ending on it. That's really talks about reducing chlorides to protect our water resources here in Northern Illinois. A couple other pieces that are there. We have an FAQ sheet that's up on the website, both as here's, just a standard FAQ. And then we also have it in the Word document. So you can put in, if you have specific ordinances relating to some of these things, you can customize it and use it for your own resources. And then we also did these kind of meet your plow driver social media posts. And this was an idea that we got from Iowa DOT and started putting these together for any of the communities that were interested. So we have a simple Google form that can be filled out and include a picture with it. And we can put these together and provide them back to members of any of the watershed groups that we're working with. And it's a way to kind of put that personal face on our plow drivers, plows out there in our winter operations. These folks are out there working a long day or night for many hours in very tough conditions, and then they still got to go home and plow their own driveways. So helping to put that personal face out there. And then just one last plug for our Salt Smart Certified program. So we had received a 319 grant to put together an Illinois-based training and certification program. This is building on work that was started through the Sensible Salting Committee. Which Stephen had participated on that committee, and he's also participating on our steering committee for this project. So we'll have a brand new manual and training program that will be available in 2023, really geared towards private contractors and small sites, park districts, libraries, school districts, and that do their own parking lots and high sidewalk work. And so that is all I have. All that is available at the saltsmart.org website. And stop sharing.
Thanks, Jen.
That's it. Thank you.
So another item on chlorides worth mentioning is, as you know, we've been working with 3 of our members, Itasca, Wooddale, and Carroll Stream. Thanks again to their staff for continuing to collect the tailings from the street sweeping programs that they have. And what we're trying to do there is document how much, give an approximation to village about how much they're capturing chlorides through their street sweeping program. And then, of course, there's a lot of questions or a lot of answers that that's going to throw up. But we'll shoot of some of that data as we now have a year of data approximately. We will hopefully be able to present that at our next meeting, at least in a initial form. And certainly looks like more salt. We're capturing more than I would have. We'd realized that this was an area that no one had any data on, and it seemed worth collecting, that if villages were capturing salt in this way, that it should be documented. Not exactly sure what we can do to change that. We're not necessarily going to make any recommendations for street sweeping, but perhaps we should also pay attention to where the street sweeping is being placed afterwards and how that's being treated, as we know that chlorides don't degrade like a lot of our other pollutants. Okay, Dina, anything on our Upper Salt Creek 319 watershed plan?
I mean, we're working on the draft plan. The draft plan is actually due to the IEPA by the end of 2022. So we're working on getting that text. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 15th. We are going back to virtual because we're getting our best attendance that way. So we decided to kind of forego the in-person meetings for a while and go back to where we're seeing our members being able to attend on November 15th. You should have gotten an email invite to that. If you haven't, reach out and let me know. We'll get you added to that list. And that's really it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dina. So just looking through the other activities here, note that we just want to give a shout out, I guess they call it, to Amy Binns-Calvi. So she is a concerned citizen who had worked with Dina and I on identifying the sources of the stream fungus, or the sewer fungus, as you know, we'd had on Salt Creek a few years back. She reported she thought she had seen some again. Dina did go out to the site and look at it and couldn't replicate her what she had seen. So we're going to take another crack at that. But it is great to have a couple of concerned citizens there who are regularly visiting the creek that help keep eyes out for this kind of issue. And also during Greg's presentation, I forgot to say thank you to board member Eric Knighty, who came out to the site several times and had a lot of useful advice on placement of rock or cobble behind root wads and such, just based on a lot of experiences he's seen being placed 20 years ago and what it looks like now. So thanks to him too. All right, we're going to move into our business items. So there's a table of invoices that have been paid by staff. Once again, this is there for everyone's information. These are reviewed by staff against the budget. They're also reviewed by a board or committee chair person who oversees then, checks that staff's is doing it properly. Then they move on to the board for full approval. So there's multiple levels of scrutiny on these invoices before they're paid. Once again, any questions on that, please give me a call. There's also attached to your, there is the financial reports and the member dues report, or the member dues payment reports for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. I know since that was issued, I also had iTask mid payment. So iTask, if you see you're not on there, that's okay. You'll be on the next one. This just came out before we received that check. So important item to deal with, as Dave had referred to, is that the board has voted to appoint 2 new members for the rest of the fiscal year. So we'd like to issue a very warm welcome to Mr. Panakin Desai, who works with MWRD. He's going to replace Adam Gronsky on our board. Adam is taking a new position at the district. Very happy for him, but Panakin's going to be a great addition to our board. The other is Greg Ulreich from Carroll Stream, and who did a presentation earlier on this. So both he's filling a vacant at-large position, which was opened up under our bylaws change in the annual meeting at 2022. So in terms of the board, there'll be a full panel for the board will be on the next agenda for our December meeting, as that's proposed to the membership prior to the annual meeting. And then that will be voted on. It's a series of votes and appointments that then will be made at the annual meeting at the end of February 2023.
Yeah, Stephen, as you mentioned, we have 13 members that we can have on the board. We have 1 vacancy currently. So yeah, we will have the slate, and we're all elected annually. So thank you, Panakin and Greg, for saying yes. And we will have that full agenda ready for you at the next meeting to review ahead of the annual meeting.
Yeah. So an item we do have a vote on, Dave, is the bylaws change. So this year we had run up sort of against our, the board has the authority under the bylaws to authorize in an emergency $10,000 for an item without approval from the general membership. That item, that 10,000 was set back in, Larry and I wrote the bylaws back in 2006. So, you know, what we had discussed was increasing that amount, and the board had suggested to 25,000. We'd like to take a vote on advancing that language, or we certainly can you know, to discuss it now, and then if people are okay with it, it would be to the annual meeting where it would be voted on. We can only look at bylaws change at the annual meeting, so this would not be effective today. This vote would simply, you know, give us the green light to advance it to the annual meeting for the actual vote.
Okay.
So the motion would do is the language is set out there. A motion needed to move the bylaw change to the 2023 annual meeting. And it reads, the executive board may authorize expenditures of less than currently 10,000, taking that out, replacing it with 25,000, which are an emergency and cannot be delayed for review at a work group meeting.
And this change is increasingly needed as we've moved into more project management, and waiting until the next regular meeting has been increasingly difficult. So many of us that work for municipalities, local governments, were used to a $25,000 limit for our chief executive. So with this will be on our next agenda in December. Dina, do you have a vote prepared for this?
Well, any discussion on it?
Any discussion? I don't see any chat. Our board has voted to recommend it to all of you. Okay, if there's no question, looking for a motion and second. I see a motion by Larry Cox and a second by Dennis Stryker.
The motion has passed with three abstentions. Sorry.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. All right, so that again, that will appear on at the annual meeting agenda. Last item is on the official agenda is presentations and workshops. Dina and I did 2 presentations during the last period. Just want to note the September 9th one, which was to US EPA and IEPA. That was at the invitation of US EPA. They wanted an update on progress on implementing the permit. So we talked about a lot of stuff we've covered in the meeting today, update on the physical projects, and then also talk about the nutrient implementation plan. And Dave, that's everything that's on the agenda.
I have one thing. We talked about the notice of fundings. So I'm going to share my screen real fast.
Okay. Oh, yes. Yes, Dina, sorry.
Sorry.
I noted everything else on scribbled in the corner, but I didn't do this one.
Yeah, sorry. So we just have a couple quick that we wanted to share with you guys, some notice of fundings that have come up, and get those out to you so that you're aware. So the DuPage County Water Quality Improvement Grant is out. They are accepting applications until January 6th, 2023, and they'll fund up to 25% of construction projects. The Section 319 grants are out. They are due on December 7th, so that one's a little sooner. They're doing 2 different grant applications this year. So they have a separate application for specifically for watershed-based plans, and then a second application that's, you know, differently and more streamlined for the implementation of watershed-based plan projects or other pollution control projects. So like if you're doing your rain gardens, your infiltration plans, your projects like Greg with the Streambank Stabilization project, you know, you'd follow too. And then if you're doing your plans like the Upper Salt Creek or the East Branch project, the East Branch plan that DuPage County is working on, you know, you'd use the application number 1, and those are up for 60%. They are offering a technical assistance session on November 2nd to help walk you through this process. So if you're interested in the new 319 process, which is a little bit more harder now that you go through the GATA process, you might want to go ahead and put that on your calendar to attend. Some upcoming ones that are happy to know is that section 604B is coming out again. That is expected in mid-November. And then the green infrastructure grant opportunity through IEPA is back, and that is going to be coming out with a notice of funding sometime in early 2023. We'll keep you posted on when that's coming up, but we'll go ahead and put all these links and stuff into the agenda. And if you need them, just shoot me an email and I can get them over to you. And that's all I had on that, Stephen.
Thanks, Dina. And we also, I was neglecting to mention, of course, we'd sent out the invitation, which was issued for the 2022 Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy Partnership Workshop announcement. That's going to be held on November 1st. There is both a virtual and an in-person component to it. Registration is closed for it, but hopefully if anybody wanted to attend, they already got in underneath that deadline. We'll be attending and we'll report back on anything we think folks need to know. So Dave, I think that wraps up everything that we had.
Okay, and I just want to mention this is the time of year that I normally send out the PDH certificates. So look for those. Nancy Sonato of our staff compiles a spreadsheet showing which meetings you've attended. And so probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll have that to each of you. This meeting, as well as the others, has been submitted to the IEPA for CEUs for the wastewater.
It has been approved.
Yeah,
We
it's been
have that
approved.
number, so we'll get that out following.
Okay, so I believe that's the case for all of our meetings in the past year, Dina?
I believe so. Everyone that we've asked for approval, yes, has been approved.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll get our certificate and then you can keep your records that they have also been approved by the IEPA.
Yeah, Nancy will be following up with a mailing to everyone about the number that they need to use to get their CEUs recognized.
Okay. Well, thank you for attending, everyone. That's all I had also. We can entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, Leonard Dane, seconded by Greg Ulreich. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.